I'm writing this because I need to put it down somewhere that isn't my head. Saying it aloud to friends feels performative, and my mother's instinct is to calm me down, which is kind, but not what I need. I want the facts out in order. What happened, how I reacted, and what it did to the part of me that thought our apartment was safe. I live in a 3-story walk-up in a mid-sized city. It's the kind of building where you know the guy who waters plants in 4B and the family with the dog that barks on Sunday mornings. It's been home for 5 years. I pay my rent on time. I work a normal job. I don't throw late-night parties. I keep the hallways clear of shoes. I assumed that was enough. Her name is Karen. She moved in directly across the hall about 9 months ago. She's in her late 40s, says hello too loudly in the stairwell, and has an opinion about everything from where packages should be left to which maintenance requests should be prioritized. She introduced herself on move-in day with a plate of store-bought cookies and an immediate correction about a fire safety poster in the lobby. I thought she was just particular. Fine, people are particular. The thing about people like Karen is that they are precise in how they escalate. It didn't start with confrontational shouting or threats. It started with small, persistent complaints. The first month she lived here, she left a sticky note on the laundry room door. Please remove lint from dryer, it's dangerous. Logical. The note was polite. I used the dryer that week and wiped out the filter. I didn't think much of it. Then she began to email building management about noise. Someone stomping above Unit 2A at 11:30 p.m., loud music from Unit 3B at 2 a.m. She never left her name, but management began to forward the messages to all tenants with a standard "please be considerate" line. People grumbled, but nothing else. I assumed it wouldn't be aimed at anyone in particular. Her focus landed on me in the 3rd month. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's otherwise. I don't know. The first time she spoke to me directly was at the mailboxes. "You walk oddly," she said, like that was a minor observation. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You knock," she clarified, "at night. Sounds like heavy steps. You should be more careful. It keeps people up." This is the point most people would ask whether they remember stomping. I looked at my shoes. I tried to imagine the ways in which I could be so disruptive. I work from home sometimes, but I don't race around the apartment. I was confused and embarrassed and apologized reflexively. She nodded in that slow way that implied she had delivered a verdict. After that, I found sticky notes on my door. "Please be mindful of neighbors." An anonymous complaint was left in our building's suggestion box requesting quieter use of living spaces after 10 p.m., and it happened to include the hallway number where I live. It is possible someone else complained. The timing made it feel targeted. I started to pay attention to how I moved. I took my shoes off earlier. I learned to shuffle more instead of plant my feet. I stopped walking barefoot the way I used to. All of this felt ridiculous and humiliating, but humiliating in a small, intimate way. The kind of shame that curls up and hides inside you so you can continue eating your dinner without making a scene. Then there were the front door incidents. A package would be wedged so it turned the hallway into an obstacle course. Groceries would be left on the landing in front of my door. Once, someone intentionally left a small trash bag leaning against my door so I would have to move it. I dismissed all of it at first. Thoughtless neighbors, packages misplaced. But when I asked the super if he'd seen anything unusual, he shrugged and said he hadn't. He also told me that someone had complained about a suspicious smell coming from my unit and that management wanted to inspect just to be safe. They inspected. They found dried soup on a counter. I felt ridiculous, like I had been caught not cleaning properly. Management called me and politely asked whether I was cooking too late. I said no, I wasn't. They said their only concern was building upkeep. I tried not to sound defensive, but it was already piling up. A week later, I came home from work to find a flyer taped to the main door of my building. Notice, community meeting to address tenant safety, it read. Everyone in the building was asked to attend. The meeting was 3 days later. On the sheet beneath the notice, someone had scrawled, "About Unit 2A." That was the first time I felt a real hot panic, because a room of people with a question I couldn't answer sounded a lot like an accusation. At the meeting, Karen spoke first. She did not introduce herself as a neighbor at first. She introduced herself as a concerned resident. She described incidents carefully, like a witness in court. Stomping, noise, bags left on landings, a smell. She spoke in lists. The other tenants nodded. Management's eyes flicked to me. I felt my palms go cold. I tried to speak after she finished. I said I didn't know what she was referring to. I said I kept to myself. I said I didn't throw trash or make noise intentionally. Karen smiled in a way that was small and final. Maybe you don't notice. Not everyone is as mindful. It's about community standards. A couple of neighbors offered tentative support for me. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. But the seed of doubt was planted. After the meeting, someone told me a neighbor had filed a formal complaint with management asking they consider issuing a warning if the behavior continued. The complaint was written in that precise, dry language that makes allegations sound tougher than they should. From that point on, the escalation was both predictable and careful. I started finding letters from management on my door with dates and times asking me to respond to complaints. The letters were not accusatory. They were phrased as concerns for community well-being. Please be aware multiple noise complaints have been received regarding your unit between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Kindly adjust your schedule. The language did not say, "You did this," but it was close enough. I learned to be careful. I stopped using the dryer at night. I rearranged the furniture to reduce creaks. I bought felt pads for the chair legs and taped them down. I started to record my comings and goings with timestamps on my phone to prove my movements. I began joking in my head about being in a passive-aggressive thriller. It was humiliating and exhausting, but I told myself it would pass. Then the turning point. One Wednesday evening, the super knocked on my door while I was brushing my teeth. He had a folder in his hand. He said, "Management has received another complaint. They need access to your unit for an inspection based on a report of unsanitary conditions." The folder felt heavy. I told him to come in. I wasn't hiding anything. He made a quick check. The place was fine. He left, awkward, apologetic. But the inspection itself had been logged and attached to my file. It was evidence in someone's deliberate pattern of reports. The following week, I opened my mailbox to find a handwritten note shoved between flyers. "We all have to do our part. Please be more considerate." No signature, no address. It felt like being watched, then disciplined by a jury I could not see. The petty attacks were endless. A neighbor telling management that my cat had roamed the halls, which she hadn't. A complaint about the smell of incense. I hadn't burned any incense in months. An allegation that I had left the sink running. I hadn't. Every complaint forced me into a position of proving the mundane truth of my life, that I was not an animal, not a criminal, not a threat. I tried to talk to Karen directly. I wanted to find the human behind the notes. I knocked on her door once and said, honestly, "If I'm making noise, I want to fix it. I'm sorry." She answered with a dryness that felt surgical. "It's not about the noise," she told me. "It's about respect. People around here have standards. You can be better." I asked, "Better how?" And she waved a hand as if I should know. She didn't offer specifics. That's the thing. People who weaponize standards often don't define them precisely. They leave the target guessing and failing. It got worse. Management sent a formal letter stating that if complaints continued, they would consider a formal notice to cure or vacate. That phrase, notice to cure or vacate, has a sound of finality. I looked it up online 3 times and felt my throat tighten every time. I printed out copies of my pay stubs and rent receipts. I printed a calendar of my hours at work. I printed video timestamps. I put all of it in the folder because if it came to a hearing, evidence would matter. Someone I barely knew in the building, a woman who had always been kind in passing, stopped me in the hallway one afternoon and said, "I don't know what's going on, but if you need anything, tell me. Don't let them push you out." Her eyes were full of worry, and I felt a small spark of human decency. Most people in the building were neutral or afraid to engage. When people see someone being singled out quietly, they often do nothing because they don't want to be next. I collected small kindnesses like vitamins. A tenant left a bowl of fruit at my door with the note, "For you, hang in there." The super moved my packages inside the office so I wouldn't have to risk tripping over obstacles on the landing. A few neighbors sent me quick texts asking if I was okay. Those things mattered, but they didn't stop Karen. At a point, I stopped asking whether it was legal. I stopped trying to conceptualize a motive. I started to operate from the fact that there was a sustained campaign of targeted complaints, and the only intervention that would stop it would either be proof that I wasn't breaking rules or convincing the building that the complaints were malicious. Neither task is simple. Proof is limited in a building filled with humanity. Perceptions are sticky. 3 months in, the pressure became constant. I couldn't enjoy being home. I would return from the grocery store and feel like someone was watching, waiting for me to trip. I started eating out more or going to friends' places to sleep, not because I wanted to, but because my own apartment felt like a place under indictment. The person who had made my front door the locus of drama had succeeded in making my home unsafe in a social sense. Finally, I collated everything in my folder and scheduled a meeting with building management. I walked in with exactly the printed documentation, time-stamped logs, copies of letters, a list of neighbors who could vouch for me, the notes people had left. I did not expect miracles. I expected procedure. I expected a polite man in a jacket to shuffle pages and say something non-committal about community standards. Instead, something I didn't expect happened. When I handed the folder to the manager, he actually read through it. He frowned. He said, "This is more than venting. These are coordinated complaints. We can't have that." He agreed to pause any enforcement action and to formally request that residents stop anonymous notes and file complaints through a verified channel. It felt like a small, official exhale. The manager also said something pointed. If anyone has a dispute, they can file it formally, and management will follow established protocols. If someone is making false reports, that can be addressed. It wasn't a clean victory. It was an administrative correction, but I took it. A week later, I found another note. "It's not over." Someone had slid it under my door in the dead of night. I felt the old fear again. But then I realized the note had no power unless the building allowed it to. Management had been firm. Neighbors were more willing to speak up when they saw the difference. A few people told me quietly that Karen had been heard complaining about me on the stairwell, and that others were tired of the energy it brought. Within another month, the pace of complaints slowed. Management enforced a rule that anonymous notes left in communal spaces would be discarded. People who once turned away now stopped to say hello. I still flinch when a shoe drops in the hallway. I still keep evidence files tucked away. But the harassment lost momentum because it had to rely on a system of anonymity that the building now refused to support. It's tempting to say this resolved the way it should. In truth, what changed most was not an external fact, but my own internal geography. Someone had proven the house of my life could be infiltrated by consistent whispers. That realization does not vanish just because the whispers stop. I have to live with the memory that a neighbor could arrange the social mechanism to make me feel unwelcome in my own home. That leaves a scar. I could have moved. People suggested it. My mother asked whether this neighborhood was worth it. Moving would have meant spending money and time to start over. It would have also let the tactic work. I decided to stay because I want to choose when I leave, not when some harasser chooses for me. Staying was a decision to reclaim my own agency. If you are listening and something like this is happening to you, here's what I learned. Document everything. Get witnesses. Don't answer anonymous notes with panic. Go to the manager with the full, calm folder. Name the pattern. Refuse to perform the humiliation. Reach out to neighbors who seem kind. Even one ally matters. You are not required to be silent while someone chips away at your life with small, quiet weapons. People will say, call the police or take legal action. That's true in extreme cases. In my case, the most effective step was formalizing the process with management and removing the anonymous anonymity that allowed small attacks to multiply. Also, a neighbor's bowl of fruit matters. So does showing up to a meeting. Norms are enforced by people. People change rules when enough of them notice the behavior is intolerable. It didn't end with a dramatic confrontation or viral video. The person who targeted me still lives in the building. I make a point of saying hello when our paths cross in the stairwell. She nods, thinly. We both act like adults. The harassment stopped not because of a showdown, but because the structure that allowed it was corrected. And because more people were willing to say, politely but firmly, that the small cruelty they tolerated in silence was no longer acceptable. It took months for my sense of home to unfreeze. I still wake up sometimes with the dim fear of notes under the door. But I have also learned that the weapon of small things loses power when you respond with paperwork, witnesses, and community. The stories people tell themselves about what is acceptable in a building are enforced by silence. Break the silence with facts, and the story changes.